Do the Steelers deserve credit or scorn for their handling of AB?
I'm going to lean credit, but I really want to extract the individual from their circumstances. It's about choices, man. Being from where I'm from, Compton, L.A., South Central, all that stuff and all that madness, I saw so many people become products of the environment. And every single one of them that I knew intimately, I always remember the moment that they tapped out, that they actually chose to change their paradigm of what they really believed and valued. And it was always some stupid stuff to me at the time. So when I wanted to go home and study, I felt the pressure from my friends all of a sudden to just hang out and do nothing. I said, let's go in the house and do something instead of hang out and do nothing. Choosing to look fresh and clothing so they could get girls' attention versus just dedicate yourself to doing extra push-ups for this Pop Warner practice. Little choices. So I draw a parallel to this situation, and it's hard for me to blame or really credit the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I respect that they had someone who was a ticking time bomb and he didn't fully explode on their watch. But it's AB's choice at the end of the day. Maybe he has mental health issues that we're going to address going forward once he gets the proper therapy. But to blame a circumstance, to sit up here right now, if I go crazy up here at Fox, to look back at ESPN and say, y'all enabled that, y'all made Marcellus go to that place, I just don't believe in that. I distance myself from what's outer, from what's inner. Maybe AB could.
They deserve credit because he was a 6th-round pick. He was a 195th pick of the draft, and they developed him into a good player. But they also have enabled him. And so for me, you can say they deserve credit and scorn because they truly enabled him. And in the world of sports, this is how things work. When you're a good player, we're going to give you a lot of rope. We're going to let you get away with a lot of things. And as soon as you get a little older and we can get rid of you, or the things we put up with has gotten to the point where we can't tolerate it, now it looks like, oh, you let me get away with this. There were so many things that happened in Pittsburgh that we don't know about, probably never will know about. When I was playing in Cincinnati and we had all these arrests, it was so much more going on in Cincinnati that nobody never knew about because they enabled them. They hid it. They kept it quiet. And so they deserve credit because they developed him. We're talking on the football field. But outside of that, they enabled him truly, and now nobody is willing to go that extra. Even the Patriots were willing to give him a chance. Now he's self-destructed, and it's no turning back.
I give them credit, and I don't think that the culpability of saying that they enabled him really exists in this situation because it's his job. You've now been hired to do a job. It's not the employer's job to make sure that you're making the right decisions. They pay you to do your job. So you made that decision when you signed on the dotted line. Nobody had to be by his side and making sure he handles getting that check. So to me, when you're looking at a guy that had a Hall of Fame worthy career and possibly in the peak or prime of his career, you let him go. That says to me, you had an employee that could bring an all-star value to your company, but we could not move forward with you as an employee based upon the things that you're doing. If you look at any company, I would assume that they're going to handle things that way. I don't credit them with scorn because they enabled AB to do the things that he ended up doing when he became popular.
Well, I disagree with your take in this sense. I agree with TJ. I think there were so many things going on with AB that we've never heard about over the course of that 9 years because the Steelers kept it under wraps because they wanted his production. When I go back now and look in hindsight at what Big Ben, Juju Smith-Schuster, Mike Tomlin, their interactions with AB, I come to the conclusion like, wow, they put up with a lot of stuff from AB. And we never heard about any suspensions or discipline until that Week 17 game at the end of his career where they sat him down and finally they said enough is enough. And the reason why I say scorn, I lean towards scorn, is because when you don't discipline a person like this that's that out of control, they never have a moment where they try to self-correct. And it eventually leads to where we are a decade later, this guy holed up in his house, hiding from the police afraid to go in. And again, I'm not blaming the Steelers for where AB is now, but I do wish there had been more discipline of AB, and maybe some of it needed to be public.
Can I respond?
Because privately they may have.
Can I respond to that? Can I respond to that? Yeah. First of all, I don't think we know how much discipline action was being taken behind closed doors. That's first. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I do not hear what's being said and say there is a uniqueness to the way things were being handled with AB versus any other player that comes through those doors and signs on to a franchise team. There have been,
any team is what you're
saying.
But
AB has shown us, you discipline him, you fine him, he's going to lash out. So it couldn't have been, when he was with, that's what happened with Mayock. They fined him, he didn't like it, he lashed out. If they were doing that in Pittsburgh, we would have heard about it.
But I think at that time, the lion's out the cage. I think it's important to say if you're enabling him, then it's about the growth process and how are you disciplining him as he's starting to turn into that big, fully grown lion. Every Hall of Famer I ever played with, every All-Star I ever played with was enabled. Let's stop that. All of them got extra permission.
In what way? In what way?
That's how sports works.
Clarify enabled, though.
I'm sure you got away with some things.
Look, trust me. I got away with a lot of things that the next guy who wasn't putting up them sacks couldn't get away with. So basically, let's transform names or bodies. You're not going to be able to do what I'm doing based on what my resume is saying. Here's the thing. I've seen amazing transitions from those same Hall of Famers that were enabled. From an LT to a Bruce Smith. And then obviously, sadly, we saw Junior Seau have the greatest struggle in terms of taking his life. So without consequence, permission's given, brother. And it's hard to bring consequences to anybody who's making plays.
They got rid of him.
Got rid of him.
At the end.
That's when the Lions already.
But at the end of dealing with him, he was not at the end of his career.
They enable you. They give you a lot of rope because they hope a maturation process takes place and you get to the point when you get to year 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 that, okay, you'll stop doing these things. And that's why they got rid of him because they saw it was never going to end.
The reason they got rid of him is because it became a civil war. It was too big Lions going in. It was Ben Roethlisberger and AB. If it were anybody else and you could get any other disparity, AB versus a lesser guy, you know what happens to the lesser guy. But when it becomes those two guys, it's civil war.
But again, you could say both of those are Hall of Fame guys. That's two Hall of Fame guys.
They definitely are.
If you're going to make a decision, then you're making that decision not just based off of, the color of Ben's skin or the position that he plays. You're making that decision based off of, professionally speaking, who can I get the best results and get the most return on my investment as a company? You're not looking at it any other way.
Well, who's more important? You play quarterback, you already got a leg up. Be real. Because you're longevity.
So it's 100% by position.
It's by position. Don't do that. A receiver's going to phase out before a quarterback.
I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen.
Well, I've seen it happen.
All I know, and that's fine. But what I'm telling you guys, when you're looking at what's happening with AB, to say he was enabled, listen.
Let me give you a different example. Because what you all have said has been tremendous, and I really appreciate the conversation. But I'm going to relate it to my field and industry and why I don't like the way AB was handled by the Pittsburgh Steelers. The way I went about my career as a sports writer, I was polarizing, and it gave people license to attack me and criticize me. Mm-hmm. And so as a sports writer, I was not allowed to get away with anything. Mm-hmm. There were always consequences for my behavior. I was too polarizing. If I made mistakes, I was disciplined. There was blowback. I've worked with some people and saw a lot of people in my industry that had a different style of being a sports writer who were allowed to get away with all kinds of things because they wrote in a way that people found, they thought, it was lovely, and it's so positive the way that they do. And those very same people were the people that got caught cutting corners and eventually embarrassed their newspapers by doing, and I'm talking about Mitch Albom, I'm going to put a name on it.
Okay.
Won all these awards and everything.
Okay.
Then at the end of his career, got busted and embarrassed his newspaper. I could go to the guy I work with in Kansas City, wrote a book about Joe Paterno that embarrassed him and the whole profession, celebrated their whole career. No one ever held them accountable for anything, and those are the very people that end up blowing up in your face.
But based off of your interpretation of what you just gave us, is that enabling or is that accountability? Is that enabling or is that accountability? That person, those people that you speak of, needed to be accountable for their actions.
I agree.
And
but
they came back on them.
They were held accountable. They were enabled
Of course.
at their
Yes.
newspaper.
If you're not held accountable,
Let me ask
you're
you this.
enabled.
Let me ask you this.
Come on.
At the point in time where it blew up, were they still working at that place?
Yeah.
Okay. Were they let go?
Hell no.
They weren't let go.
No, not Mitch Albom.
If you're being enabled,
He's still there. I don't know who he is. I don't know who he is.
Mitch Albom's like supposedly the greatest sports writer of the last 30 years.
I give you a
Tuesdays with Maury, the book.
Yeah, Mitch went through it. Let me give you a lighthearted example for me. I like to tell on myself. I love the fact you gave names and numbers, though. That's what Coach said. No anonymous quotes here. One day, I pulled up to our Chargers facility, parked on the curb, blasting in my Hummer, No Limit Soldiers, and I had 418s in the back, rattling the whole thing. They had Chapel inside. Now, if I weren't who I was, I probably wouldn't have the audacity to do that, let alone when they walked out in the middle of the song while I'm just going in the locker room to get something, they say, hey, Marcellus, we're inside going to chapel. Want to join us? Instead of, and now I look back in my mature self, looking back like, they didn't even tell me to turn that down as I interrupted the whole thing. All I'm telling you is there's an enabling that grows into a person and into a situation that finally enough is enough.
A practice squad got at him like, turn that down.
They would have, matter of fact, they probably took the keys from him. How about that?
You know that.
There's a different world for different
you are
guys.
being measured differently. That's fine.
That's what
I'll
we're
go
saying.
with you on that. But to say that enabled you, what did it enable you to do?
Because without any punishment, guess what I do? Oh, the line just moved
Why
a little
did you
more.
need to be punished for having your music
Because
up?
that's
While
how
it-
I
did you know there was a chapel going
not
on?
strong. It's just like someone said, hey, man, that's disrespectful, rude. Just someone holding him accountable. Everybody needs
To a
that.
standard.
Again,
That's
I've
fine.
argued everybody needs oversight. Everybody needs people to hold them
Yes.
accountable. I don't think it happened with the Pittsburgh Steelers and Antonio Brown. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. And be sure to check out more of the best clips from Speak For Yourself or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.